Hello, and thank you for purchasing Fontaine. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate it. This has been something that I've been working on for a very long time. It originated as a move in part of an ace routine that I call Sinclair, which is a variation on Bill Goodwin's trick, the Queens. It was just one vanish among 4 cards in the middle grip, and then I decided I could actually adapt that one move to different things, one of which is the grasshopper routine that I came up with initially. That was the first thing I kind of thought of. And from there I moved on to the full Fontaine routine, which is what you see highlighted a lot of in the trailer, and a snippet of this I posted on YouTube a long time ago, and that's how a lot of people started asking for it and gaining interest in it. So there's a lot of different uses for this move specifically. It started, as I said, as a vanish from that one routine. Then when I moved to the grasshopper thing, it was very much inspired by Patrick Kuhn's effect Inflict, which is one of my favorite tricks to do for people. It's an amazing trick if you want to go check that out. And it's also a little bit inspired by David Stone's trick, which is taught in either Volume 1 or Volume 2 of The Real Secrets of Magic, in which a card rapidly turns face up and face down in between 2 other cards and then changes into a different card at the end. It also has a little bit of inspiration from Brainstorm 1 and 2 by John Guestafaro, which was, again, some of my favorite card magic DVDs, and that I would highly recommend you check out. There's been a lot of inspiration for a lot of the applications of the move, and like I say in the trailer, this is in no way a finished download. It's a complete download. You'll learn everything that was in the trailer. However, it's not done. The sleight is not perfected. Hopefully I do it adequately and that you will practice it and do it adequately, but it's by no means a closed book. This is totally something that I hope you can take and apply to other things, whether you want to use it as maybe one phase in your own sandwich routine, or if you want to apply it to something completely new and completely different. I want you to take it and run with it, and don't treat it as kind of a closed book, like I said. Take it and try and mold it, try and apply it to things, and try and come up with new things with it. And there's probably many, many more things that I have not thought of that you could do with this move. So if you have any ideas or any questions or tips, I'm going to put my email and contact info at the end of the video. Once again, thank you for purchasing, and let's learn Fontaine. So to start off, we're going to learn the Fontaine move, which is what all these routines, effects, and applications are based on. We're going to learn that first off, and then we'll get into some routines. To start off, you're going to get the 2 red jacks out of the deck and place a joker in between. You're going to position the cards in a very specific way. It's a bit of a modified biddle grip. You're going to take your middle finger, and the topmost knuckle right here is going to be placed directly above the topmost jack, directly above that pip. So you're gripping the card from the middle finger directly above that pip. The thumb basically just stays along the edge, and in a standard biddle grip you're gripping it more over the cards. This is more of gripping the cards a little bit to the side, a little bit swiveled. Okay? Now it's very important that your ring finger is positioned directly on top of the joker, or whatever card is in between, whether it's a selected card, whatever card is in the middle here. It's very important that your ring finger, the topmost knuckle of your ring finger, gets placed directly above that card. So basically, the similar situation with gripping the top card and all 3 with the middle finger. It's kind of the same situation with the ring finger and the selected card. So it goes right on top there. So this is the position that you'll be vanishing the card in, or stealing the card off in, or doing the Fontaine move in this position. So it's very important that you're comfortable in this position, and it's important that your ring and pinky finger rest below these cards, that they're not completely out, because your ring finger is going to be doing most of the dirty work. So it's important to get used to this position, get comfortable with it. Once you've mastered that and gotten a little bit of a grip on the grip, haha, jokes, you're going to proceed like this. you're going to place the topmost phalange of your ring finger and make sure it is in contact with the face of the card. So literally the pad of my ring finger is touching that joker. It's literally brushing up against it so I can get a grip on that card. Now what you're going to do from this position is pull with your ring finger, pull that card to the side. Essentially all you're doing is curling your ring finger in. And when your ring finger is positioned directly on top of that joker, and the pad of your actual finger is connecting with the face of the card, when you curl your finger in, it'll drag that joker directly to the right. So once again, show you like this. You're connecting with the face of the card and pulling directly to the right. And from the top, under the guise of shaking, it looks as if that card vanishes. When you're vanishing a card in this manner, where it actually vanishes abruptly as you're shaking, it's important that you pull the card back on the offbeat. So you're not just waving and randomly pulling it in, because they might actually see the card being slid to the side. It's important that when you do the move, at least if you're waving, that you're actually pulling it on the offbeat or on the wave back. When the hand leans back like this, and there's just a little bit of time, you have a little window of opportunity where the card is covered, or at least is blurred at the most, that's when you do the vanish. If you just do it like this, you might catch it trailing to the right a little bit. Now what you should be noticing right now is that I've got a little bit of a window right here in the crotch of my thumb. If my hand is not completely covered like this and covering the entirety of this jack, and there's a little bit of a window, you'll actually see a little bit of this card sticking out, which you don't want. There's a couple ways of fixing that. The first is just to make sure that your hand is covering it completely, whether that's making sure that your hand is just as far to the left as possible when you're holding these cards, or whether you position your hand a little bit to the left when you're actually doing the wave, or whether you just want to manage your audience so that they're looking from a right angle. They're looking more from a right angle than a head-on angle, and they won't see that that card is flashing. But another way you can do it, which is a little bit more difficult and may not work if you are not very weirdly double jointed. Unfortunately, my fingers are that was not as impressive of a crack as I wanted it to be. If your fingers are not weird and double jointed like mine are and can bend back in weird angles and just operate very strangely, you might have a little issue with this next bit, but it's important that I cover it because if anyone out there has fingers like mine, not that they're great fingers, but are just weird and double jointed, this will help you a lot. When you're pulling the card to the side, you should notice that if you pull it past the edge of the card, so you're not just trying to pull it to a point where it's aligned, because that could risk not pulling it far enough and flashing a border on this side, which is much worse than showing a border on this side. What you're going to want to do is pull it past the jack just enough that it actually comes in contact with the bottommost knuckles of your hand. This is going to be kind of hard to see, but you'll notice it's actually pressing up against the palm of my hand. These knuckles right here, sorry to flip you off, these knuckles right at the bottom, at the base of my hand, or at the top of my palm, are actually coming in contact with the edge of that card. So I'll show you when I pull it in, boom, it actually hits the flesh of these bottommost knuckles. It's mostly the knuckle of your ring finger, or maybe the knuckle in between your ring and your middle finger. But when you have this, you can actually take your hand, again, this is a really weird and awkward claw-like position for your hand to be in, and your fingers might not operate this way, but you should actually be able to push the card in and align it with that topmost jack. So you'll see now, I have actually successfully aligned it almost perfectly. You may not get totally perfectly, but you can get close to it. So when I'm actually pulling this over, I pull it a little bit further than I should. You can actually see the edge sticking out. And then as I'm continuing to wave, these knuckles align it with that jack. It's all under the cover of waving. So now I can actually show these back and forth. I did a little crappily there, but I'll do it one more time. If the cards fall on the floor, yay. happy days. So once again, you're just pulling it all the way over and aligning it. Now, if you're discouraged and you're trying to do this move and it just isn't working, there is a little bit of advice I'd like to give you. Just practice it. If it doesn't work in the first day, keep practicing it. If it doesn't work in the first week, keep practicing it. I, before this download, have never shared this routine with anyone. This is my own kind of little routine that I like to do exclusively. And before releasing this to the public, a little kid named Matthew Fox, he's actually not a little kid, he's 11 and he's way better than I am at magic, but he came up to me at MagicCon and showed me this exact routine, actually this exact move in Sinclair. He showed it to me before I had shown anyone and nailed it, and actually had gotten down that aligning thing, just because his hands just practiced it enough and he got it down. It may not work every single time for every single person, but it is worth practicing, and if you get discouraged, I would highly recommend continuing to try it. So let's try that one more time. You have the cards here. Your ring finger pulls it to the right a little bit further, and then your knuckles kind of align it together so that now you should be able to show on all sides. Now, if you're using a double-backed card, you can actually show the backs of the card. Naturally, if you're using a double-backed card, you can't show the selection beforehand, but if you have two cards that are a double-backed card, one card that's a double-backed card, and say the 10 is the selection, and this blackjack is a double-backed card, what you can actually do is show the selection, steal it off onto the deck, and then do the move and show on both sides. We'll teach that steal in full detail up next, but hopefully you've gotten a bit of a grip, oh, magic pun, on the Fontaine move itself and what it looks like. Give it a little bit of practice, and hopefully the next routines will be a lot easier to comprehend and to practice. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let's move on. Now we're going to learn the 1-2 vanish. We've learned one of the vanishes with the Fontaine move, which is more of the instantaneous vanish. Now we're going to learn the 1-2 vanish. Similar to the 1-2 punch, it has 2 beats before you actually realize that the card has vanished. And you actually might realize it the first beat, but it takes 2 beats to fully realize that the card is completely gone. So you're going to start out in a position with one card face down and one card face up, face to face in between the 2 jacks. Now, depending on what routine we're doing, there's many ways to get into this. In the Fontaine effect, just the sequence of events immediately sets you up for this. In the grasshopper effect, you're going to actually have 3 cards in the center, and you're going to thumb off, just as we did when we did the steal. And you're going to show the selected card, gesture, steal off, and then do the 1-2 vanish. But we'll teach that more in a bit. The main 1-2 vanish requires 2 cards face-to-face in the center. Once you spread these cards out, you're going to gesture, and in the act of gesturing, you're going to do the Fontaine move. So I've already done it, okay? You're pulling this card out to the right under the guise of gesturing. So now you've got 3 cards on the front, 2 cards on the back. And when you show 2 cards on the back, you're immediately going to turn over. But while you're showing 2 cards on the back, you're simply going to be pulling this card in with your first finger. So you show like this. As you turn back over, the card is already gone. The great thing about this, and the reason I call it the 1-2 vanish, is because there's 2 beats. You first gesture. When you turn the cards over, it doesn't really make sense. And when you turn it back over, they've realized that it vanishes. So the first part of it, it's not even really a magic trick, it's just confusing. It's not until they see that it's actually vanished on the other side too that it becomes a magic trick and it becomes a vanish. So you turn it over, boom, boom. Once you're in this position, you can actually place the entire packet on the deck with the 3 cards positioned flush with the deck. And as you do that, you can strip out this card and show just 2 cards. There's also different ways to ditch those cards, or to position the cards in such a way so that it looks like you've only got 2 cards, and you can ditch these onto the deck. but we'll get into those when we get into the full routines. That's the basic 1-2 vanish. Hope you enjoyed it.